Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And today we are talking about Showing Up, the new movie from Kelly Reichardt, a sort of indie fan favorite director, probably one of my favorite American directors working right now. And she's definitely one of those directors I think where, like, if you know, then her movies have a very similar vibe to them.
Yeah.
I think, and kind of an aesthetic that you get used to. So I feel like people are either you kind of like all of Kelly Reichardt's movies, or you don't like any of them, or you've never seen any of them.
Yeah, kind of almost like a cult following, or just she has her own niche, her own kind of group of fans, and it can be hard to recommend Kelly Reichardt movies. Like, I wouldn't recommend them for everybody. There's definitely people where I can think of, like, I don't think you'd really like this, but like they're just very unique. They kind of work at their own pace.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's kind of I've noticed something too, where she almost kind of establishes the pace in the first like minute or three of the movie during either, like, I can't remember if it's the actual credit sequence of First Cow, where you just watch like a barge like cross the screen, like the entire thing, and you're just kind of like, oh, this is an interesting opening shot, and then it just keeps going, and you're like, oh, is the camera just not going to move? And how much of this are we going to watch? And you're like, oh, we're going to watch the whole thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And Showing Up kind of does that as well, where it's got like an interesting pacing to the beginning of the movie. And in this one, because we just saw it a few days ago, I can definitively say this is when the opening credits roll as well. So before we get any further along, would you like to tell the people what Showing Up is about?
Absolutely. A sculptor preparing to open a new show must balance her creative life with the daily dramas of family and friends in Kelly Reichardt's vibrant and captivatingly funny portrait of art and craft.
Yes. It's interesting to have the word vibrant in the description of a Kelly Reichardt movie, and I feel like it is, if in relation to other Kelly Reichardt movies.
The word craft fits in better. The word craft fits.
Yes.
The word vibrant, there are moments. I'd say it's
right.
Colorful.
It's colorful. I also do agree that it's funnier than most of her movies tend to be.
Yeah, there seems to be, it's a lot about artists and kind of art culture. She never gets specific about what exactly, like where exactly we are, but we get the impression it's Pacific Northwest, and they're at kind of a school for artists, kind of half school, half like retreat, kind of, not a lot of rules.
Yeah.
There's a class where people just like move around and dance in a field while someone plays the flute, and that's like a class that you can take. And so like, there's a lot of poking fun at artists and the kind of the way they are and how quirky and stuff they can be sometimes, but it's all done with affection. And that's similar to her other movies, where you can tell that she loves her characters, as opposed to certain directors who hate their characters. It seems like she's the anti Darren Aronofsky.
Oh yes. Wow, didn't think we mentioned his name in this episode. Yeah, you can, like, it's a little bit like, this feels like a community that she's been a part of or is a part of to some degree. And it's like a little poking fun at yourself, but also, like you say, there's great admiration and love for these characters and these people and what it is that they do, and this kind of little world that they build for themselves that is as isolated as the location of the school that they're working in.
Yeah.
And what we get here is Michelle Williams playing the lead. And first off, I want to start with, I thought she was great. I liked her way more in this than I did in the Fabelmans, Spielberg's movie from last winter. I wasn't a huge fan of her Fabelmans performance, but I liked her here a lot. There's more warmth and also some humor here, like intentional humor in a Kelly Reichardt movie. You don't see that a ton. I mean, first ones that come to mind for me are First Cow and Meek's Cutoff, and I still haven't seen the one that I've heard is just a huge bummer, Wendy and Lucy, which also has Michelle Williams in it. And I mean, I'm going to need to watch that because I've yet to see a Kelly Reichardt movie that I didn't like. And this includes Showing Up.
Mm-hmm.
I have others that I've liked more than this, but again, I think once you kind of know, for me, once I know what I'm getting with a Kelly Reichardt movie, I kind of like that we get one of these every few years or so because she's kind of got her own thing going on, and
Yeah.
she really strikes me as one of those directors that people are going to look back on and look at this really impressive catalog
Yep.
and say like, why wasn't she bigger?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I can totally see that. And um, I recently was watching kind of some newer 2023 movies that, have so-so reviews, right? Kind of just your run-of-the-mill industry, what they put out this time of year. And,
Yep.
and you watch those movies and they're just so like you've seen it all before, and like the pace and the cuts and the jokes, it's all just so formulaic. And then you get a Kelly Reichardt movie and it just seems to just slow everything down and just kind of like zoom in and just kind of like actually like live in the movie. It's hard to really explain, but once you kind of get it, like I went into this one pretty much blind. I knew it was kind of about art, but that was pretty much it. But I knew that it was a Kelly Reichardt movie, so I knew to expect like whatever we're getting into, it'll be like very nuanced, and there's gonna be like such attention to detail, and her eye behind the camera, how she frames things and how she shows things is gonna be like well done and well thought out, and like I think like I go back to the word craft. Like it's her craft. It's not, it just feels different than your like average studio movie coming out.
Yeah, I kind of like to equate it almost to, when you're a kid and like, or even now, just like the power goes out and like your phone's dead and you just
Yeah.
can't access any of the stuff that we're constantly feeding our brains. And
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, you almost have to do a little switch in your head of, okay, the pacing of life needs to slow down a little bit right now, or I need to just like readjust the way I look at things,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
way that you can kind of like think more clearly in the shower or something, because it's like one of the only places where you just like can't,
Yeah, it's like
you
the
know,
difference. It's like, oh, you had a busy night where you're gonna watch this and do this and get this done, but then the power goes out, so you just read a book by candlelight for like 4 hours.
yes,
That's all you do.
yes. And all of a sudden, and you're just kind of fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
with all these other things, with how fast everything else is moving, that would seem slow to you. That's how Kelly Reichardt movies feel to me. Like once I settle into the pacing of them, I really, really like it.
Mm-hmm.
And we should start to get into specifics of this movie because we've kind of just been talking about her for so long, but that's
Yeah.
largely because we're really big fans of hers and not a lot of, people within the movie community and like people who love movies know who Kelly Reichardt is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody else really seems to.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting movie to me because we get Michelle Williams' character, who is a sculptor,
Mm-hmm.
living next door to a character played by Chau, who is a fellow artist, someone she knows, seemingly a friend, and also her landlord. So they have kind of a lot of different webs in their relationship, and it can get a little complicated.
Yeah.
And they both have big shows coming up in about a week.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of brings us through that week as they're both preparing for this, and the pressure starts to build, particularly for Michelle Williams' character, because you kind of get the impression that Hong Chau's character I don't want to call it has had her big break, because that sounds larger than
Then
what
really what
any of
it
the
is.
stakes are here. But it's
Yeah.
big for their community. Like Hong Chau's character is kind of like, she's a little bit ahead in her
She's
career of where Michelle Williams' character is.
Yeah, her profile's just a little larger. Her
Yep.
influence and notoriety is just a little larger. But in a community like this, that small difference plays out in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, like for just the simple fact that like she's the landlord. She's the one who owns these places, and Michelle
Mm-hmm.
Williams doesn't. She's renting, and you can see the pressure building for Michelle Williams' character. And this, I mean, a lot just feels like a movie to me about process and what art gives us and why we do it and kind of what we're looking for or to
Mm-hmm.
get out of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, people will say a lot that you need to, if you're, doing art, whether it's like writing or any type of performance, if you're doing it to make money, it's probably the wrong reason. If you're doing it to get reactions out of people, it's maybe the wrong reason or maybe not the best reason.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of this feeling like you need to be doing it for yourself and just the enjoyment of the act itself. And that is certainly in here. You can tell that Michelle Williams' character really enjoys what she does. Just the way that she kind of like looks at her work once it's completed. Kind of
Yeah.
there's a sense of pride there, and she enjoys the process of doing it. But you also get the feeling that she's been doing this for long enough to where that part of it is starting to wear off for her a little bit, or maybe just not be enough in itself. And she really wants some kind of recognition just from her peers, really.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just been doing it for a while. And that's not explicitly stated in this movie, but just the fact that, like, you can tell she does the same type of art that her dad did. And her mom, she works for her mom basically at the school that they work at.
Mm-hmm.
And her brother has some artistic qualities.
Mm-hmm.
I think their mom calls him a genius at one point. And
Yeah.
she's kind of feeling a little
underappreciated, maybe.
Yes, exactly. I think that's exactly where I was going with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I picked up on that. It's very interesting because it's, it's a slow building tension that we kind of get from different angles, and then the movie kind of goes and culminates in her show. And at the time when I saw the movie, I felt like I walked out and I felt like it was a little bit like too simple, or like I wanted kind of somewhat more of like a climactic event. But looking back and kind of thinking about what you've said about it and how really it's just about the process, it feels like a very, classic Kelly Reichardt, understated but extremely effective way to get her point across or to tell the story she's trying to tell. And I felt like that worked, like really just like the whole movie. I was trying to think like, what's the quickest way to describe what this movie is about to somebody? And it's just kind of like, it's a movie about like artists and an artist who has a show coming up, and it's just kind of about like the week leading up to that show, and then that show, and like what it means to her, basically. That's what the movie is.
Yeah, exactly. And and her character sort of kind of going through this journey of deciding if
it's enough.
It's enough, yeah. Or is she going to get that recognition, and will that push her through again? Like, there's sort of an implied cyclical nature of what we're watching her go through, particularly in her relationship, I think, with Hong Chau's character. Kind of how they are at the beginning, how they are in the middle, and then how they are at the end of the story, where it kind of felt like when we left the theater, I just got this feeling of like they've all kind of been through this before.
Yep.
And sometimes it's not a lot of acknowledgement that you really need as an artist if you love what you're doing to keep you going, but you do need some at some point, or it can just feel like you're screaming into the void and doing this for, you got to do it for you, but sometimes you want other people to appreciate it as well.
Yeah.
And that can be a tough journey.
And it was interesting because like I kind of, as the movie goes on, you pick up on like that's what Michelle Williams' character is really looking for. And it'll be interesting because, when she's at the school talking with like one of her students or one of her coworkers or whatever, or she's, working, people will like look at her and be like, oh, that's great. Or like, oh, that's beautiful. Or like, oh, like, wow, this is really great. But it never feels like that compliment was enough for her, or like that compliment was like, it's really interesting the way that Kelly Reichardt handles it. Like, it's always like someone will be like, that's great. And then she'll show Michelle Williams' face, and it's just kind of like yeah, I've heard that before, and thank you. But like, I'm still looking for more. It's this
that's where I kind of go back to the cyclical nature of it, because it kind of feels like she's probably heard all this a million times, but she's still where she is. And it's beginning to mean less and less. And that all kind of very much ties into a metaphor with a bird that we don't really need to get into here, but I thought was pretty on the nose, but I did still find effective. So yeah, I mean, I think I really enjoyed this. This was the second night we saw this at the Minneapolis St. Paul International Film Festival, or Independent Film Festival. I can never remember what the I stands for. Now I'm hating myself for forgetting. International Film Festival.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was a really good time. Saw it with a packed theater, which I really appreciated that because I feel like if I saw showing up at just like any other random local theater for whenever it comes out, there'd probably be like 5 to 10 other people there
Yeah, and it
for
would
this
be a
type of
very
movie.
quiet, because it's already kind of a quiet movie. It just would be a quiet
Right.
kind of event. But with a packed theater, the little humor moments got genuine laughs, and it was kind of it just felt good. It just felt good to
Yes.
watch that
It's
kind of movie with a theater full of people who also appreciate that kind of movie.
yes. And to just be in a room with that many people who I'm like, oh, everybody here knows who Kelly Reichardt is.
Right? Imagine if we had seen Death of Stalin in a packed theater with people who love that type of weird,
We saw it in a
like.
packed theater.
Well, that's true, but they weren't feeling it.
No, they
How
weren't,
different.
which is still just one of the biggest buzzkills, or buzzkill is maybe the wrong word because it
I mean,
didn't
it's
really
a story
diminish
that
my
we can
enjoyment of
tell
the
now.
movie.
But I'll never
Yeah.
forget that. I wish there was like
Mhm.
a camera recording of that, and just so we could show people.
I know. It's
But
just
yeah,
incredible.
it was
All right.
yeah, it was a good time, and I'm glad that you invited me to see it with you.
Definitely. So we will be right back with our star ratings. Okay.
I'll go first. When I left the theater, I gave this a 3. They ask you for your review 1 out of 5, and you tear it on a little sheet, and that's how they decide who won the festival. So I gave it a 3. Since then, I have thought about it more. I have appreciated the delicate nuances and kind of what was trying to be achieved. And I didn't really get a chance to mention this, but Kelly Reichardt, her movies always look amazing. And now
Yeah.
this gets to she just mostly is in an art commune with her camera. So it's her amazing eye for visuals plus art. So it was great to look at, and I just wanted to touch on that. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3.5. I thought it was very good. I would recommend it to certain people who I think would appreciate kind of the understated artistic nature of it. But I liked it. Not my favorite Kelly Reichardt movie. I still definitely prefer First Cow and Old Joy, one of my personal favorites. But I liked it, and she continues to be one of my favorite directors.
Yeah. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think I liked it a little more right when we left, and I still feel very comfortable with that. I'm also giving this 3.5. This is actually, as of when I saw this, it was my favorite movie of 2023 so far.
Okay.
A couple days later, I saw a movie that has passed it. So this is my number 2 movie of 2023 at this point. I've seen like 20, 25 or so. So not like a million movies, but I've seen enough to feel like, okay, this was kind of the first one that I saw where as I was watching it and as I left and as I reflected, like I just liked it every time. Because there are a lot of times where you watch something like you mentioned where it's like, I thought it was okay. And then you go home and you think like, no, I think that actually worked a little bit better. But then you kind of need to watch it a second time to actually get that enjoyment out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed this beginning to end. It's sweet and surprisingly funny. Michelle Williams and Hong Chau are both great.
And Andre 3000 is pretty good too. And he plays
It's
the
just
flute.
so funny that he's in a Kelly Reichardt movie to me, but it fits.
It
She
does.
makes it work.
It totally fits.
She's just cool, I think, is just what
Mm-hmm.
it is. She's just a cool director.
She seems cool, and she seems like she's like good people and hangs out with good people. That's the whole
Yeah.
vibe I'm getting from Kelly
Exactly.
Reichardt. I bet she has lovely dinner parties.
Oh my God. I'd love to go to one of those.
All right. Is it your turn to put a wrap on the show?
It is.
All right. Take it away.
You grow up around something and it feels like nothing.